Ah, fabulous. I've got a yes. Thank you very much, Bea. Thank you very much. I see we have Kevin, we have Trevor, we have Bea. I'm sure something else has just joined us. I'm sure other people will join once they get on board. So thank you so much for joining me today. Now, my apologies, first of all, this is my first time presenting via this platform, Crowdcast. I think I have it right, but just in case, my apologies up front as to if I have any mishaps presented today. So as you said, this is a series of webinars, how to start planning for uncertain future, with the first one being how to plan for a future nobody can plan for. And before I get into it, I was just going to say what kind of inspired me to do this particular presentation. I think I had seen lots and lots of webinars going on around, lots and lots of webinars happening. But the one thing I didn't see was people telling me how to actually do this. Bear me a second. I am now going to sort myself out. Remember I said to you, I wasn't very good at doing this. Let me stop sharing a minute. That's my video. Let me try that again. So yes, as I said, I've seen lots and lots of webinars, various webinars, telling people all the things they should be doing, especially in the tourism industry, all the things they should do, they should be doing going forward in the future, and what's expected and what is needed, especially in the tourism industry. But what I hadn't seen was telling us how to actually do it. Can you see my screen, by the way? Because I'm trying to share this screen and I am not seeing it being shared. Can you just tell me you can see it being shared? Because this is not showing up on my screen. It's not showing up on my screen at all. Ah, there we go. I think I've got it now. I'm going to click to close message. Ah, there we go. It's here, no one can see. It is here, no one can see. Should be there, it should be there, it should be there now. It should be there now. You should have the screen. Fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. See, technology. Thank you very much, Bea. Now, as I said, one of the things I'd seen a lot of was people, lots and lots of webinars, and I saw it again this week, about all the things that organizations should do to ready themselves to post-COVID, all the things that they should have been doing, all the things that are expected, but nobody actually said, what does it look like? How do we get there? How do we start planning? And it was very prevalent to me when I had a couple of clients call me in panic saying, Janice, we thought something was going to happen, this and this was going to happen, but it hasn't happened. What do I do next? And I realized there was a real gap from people telling us what's expected to people actually knowing how to deliver what was expected. So that's how the series of webinars started, about how to start planning for an uncertain future, because we are definitely in unprecedented times. So before I go any further, let me just do a very short introduction as to who I am. As you know, my name's Janice Sutherland. I've been in this game far too long, over 25 years in leadership across the UK and the Caribbean. I have the distinction, and still do maintain the distinction, of being the woman to head up the telecoms sector, the only woman in Antigua and Montserrat. I am an award-winning executive coach and leadership development expert. I'm an author and I'm a podcast host. And I speak to leaders on a very regular basis about the challenges they're facing and also how to help them overcome them. The work I do, as I said, in the leadership realm is very varied, and it depends on what is expected in the organization. The reason I love it is that no 2 days are the same, and I have to be very adaptable to the environment, to the needs of the actual customer. So I work in leadership development, so I do customized performance-focused coaching at all levels of leadership. I do executive coaching, which I love, because as much as we are leaders and senior people, no one ever actually tells you how lonely it is actually at the top to go forward. I conduct leadership assessments as part of the Marshall Goldsmith certified leadership assessments. And as part of that, I also do business transformation development, which is what I'm doing here with the webinar today. I also need to say, if you have any questions, feel free to pop them. I think there's a question section where it says ask a question. So feel free to ask a question and I will answer them at the end of the presentation, just for make it succinct. I'm trying not to keep you much too long, because I know our time is precious. So let me kick off. As I said, this is the first of 4 sessions, should I say. I'll be doing another one next week, which is preparing your business for a post-pandemic world. The 3rd session will be strategies to succeed in a post-lockdown world. And the 4th is the last one, is about finding opportunity in adversity and the leadership lessons that we can deduce from the corona crisis. Because believe it or not, there are lessons that can be learned. So in this session, it's how to plan for a future nobody can plan for. I'm going to cover off a couple of topics. Basically, why do we even bother planning? Why should we bother doing it? What are the key questions that you as a leader or as a person leading your business needs to ask? And there I go, my section, before you start creating your plan. And also going to look at the power of scenario planning. It's something sometimes we think we may do without realizing we're doing it, but there are also really great ways to get benefits out of it going forward as well. So let's start with, why should I bother planning? Very good question. Really, why should bother planning? Well, pretty much planning can make the difference between surviving this crisis and succumbing to it. That's how huge planning is. And I think it's a very underrated activity. Again, sometimes I think we go through the process, not really thinking about it, but then we just have a surface level plan. And there's so many more components involved to planning than I think people realize. So when we start planning, we need to consider which phase as an organization are you currently in. And excuse me, those are my dogs. You can tell I'm working from home. So there are 3 phases you could probably in this current pandemic situation. The first is the shelter in place, where an organization is focused on employee physical safety. You've maybe shifted your operating models. You have some quick workarounds that you just put in place just to deal with the unexpected, what was happening. Now we're moving into, some of us, and definitely some islands, I know for us here in Antigua, we intend to be fully opened as of from the 1st of June. So we're in the reopening phase. And during that section, we're defining safe reopening condition. We're looking at the employees returned, and we're also looking at revised operating models. So we've moved from think about how to remain operational to how do we focus on survival in the now. And then lastly, it would be the post-COVID-19 situation phase, which is, are we in a tailwind or a headwind? Now, I say tailwind because as much as we're hearing about all the doom and gloom stories, there are some organizations, some companies that have done very well as a result of the pandemic situation. So they are in in a tailwind. They're sweeping up, they're taking advantage of the situation. You could very well be in a headwind, which I know quite a few organizations are, where we're fighting against what's coming. And in that scenario, in that phase, we're looking at what does our offering, does it now meet consumer demands? Can we meet employer expectations? And basically, how do we operate in this uncertain world? So which phase do you think you are at the moment? If you can just pop a note to say which phase of your organization at the moment. At the moment here in Antigua, we are in, I would say we're in a reopening situation, or probably tethering between reopening and post-COVID, bearing the fact that we are highly tourism based and we're still trying to find how we offer a product that will meet the consumer demands. They feel comfortable to coming back on islands. So anybody indicate which phase do you think you're in quite currently? Oh, I've just lost the chat. Phase 3. Okay. Offering mental health support to employees returning. Okay. Fabulous. Fabulous. So I think people at various, as I said, various phases in the process, but very much straggling between reopening and post-COVID. So thanks for that. Thanks for that. So when we're going into this situation now, we're going to start planning. Hey, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Joe. Good afternoon from Jolly Harbour Marina. Thanks for joining us. So when we start to going into the planning phase, what are the key questions you really need to answer? And this is what really flummox most people, because we're really not sure what the situation is, what we're facing, and how do we start answering the questions, and what are we even supposed to start asking ourselves in order to start planning. Now, I've been doing a lot of, as you can probably imagine, I've been doing a lot of research on this. And one of the things I came across, one of the models I came across was some consultants called Pedersen and Ritter, who had 5 strategic questions to bounce back from Corona. They're 5 Ps. They had first word position, which is who are you currently in the market as a result after COVID? What role do you play? Who are your competitors? And can you regain the lost ground? Those are the kind of questions they were asking when you're looking at position. Then they said you had to look at planning, and obviously that's what we're looking at right now. But what is your plan, and what must you do to rebound? Which is pretty obvious. That's what the planning. And then they said there was perspective, and they were looking at perspective from the fact of the organization, and they were saying, how is your organization, or how will your organization culture and identity change from that? Because a lot of things, a lot of organizations will be judged, I think, on how they handled and navigated through this from an employee perspective. When they're going through this whole process. So the perspective there is, how did your team navigate the whole the whole crisis position? Did it make your team a much stronger team, or did it deter them? Did it tear them apart? Has this driven a wedge to the team? What is the culture you're going to have and the identity you're going to have as a result of the outcome of Corona once you've finished? Then they had the fourth thing, should I say, was projects. Now, that's going to emerge from your plan. So you're probably going to have a lot of projects coming out of your plan when you've put it all down, you've looked at it, you're going to have a lot of projects. But the one thing to remember there is that you will have a finite amount of resources, probably even less now with the whole situation, because you have obviously maybe reduced your head count, you've furloughed staff, you've taken the actions you did in the state shelter in place scenario situation to make sure you could actually bounce back later down the line. So when you're looking at your projects, you need to remember whether you have the right amount of resources, you're not overstretching your resources in able to meet parts of your new plan. And then preparedness was pretty much as it said. It's, are you ready? Are you ready to face what's coming along with you? Your resources, do you have the people you need in place? Do you have the plan? Are you mentally in the right place? Are you prepared? Are you ready to do what needs to be done when it comes to addressing what needs to be done for your post-COVID plan? Now, as I said, that was 5 strategic questions they had. But being the coach that I am, and where my real focus is when it comes to leadership, I actually had a 6th question. And my 6th question was, the additional P was person. And when I looked at that, my question is, do you know who you need to be in order to lead your team into this new paradigm, into this new world? And it's something really overlooked, because the other thing, leaders are human, and that's what I think people sometimes forget. Yes, we're leading a team, but we also have needs, wants, desires, that kind of thing as well going forward. And are we in the right mindset? Do we feel we're strong enough? Do we think we have the skill set to lead? Because this is, again, is on certain territory. We also have our own concerns and our own fears. So looking at you as a person, as part of the planning process, I think is actually paramount, because if you're not strong as a leader, then you can't lead your team to where they need to get to. So I think that's another P paramount going forward from there as well. So the question after all that is your organization agile enough to adjust to the uncertainty that lies ahead? And that is really the unknown entity. That's the unknown question. That's the thing we don't know. We may think we do, but because of all of the uncertainty, we really don't know if we are ready. Are we prepared? Are we agile enough? Can we be flexible enough to adjust? Because just because we have this plan now doesn't mean it's actually going to stay that way, or conditions are going to stay that way going forward. So that's where scenario versus contingency planning comes in. And as I said, you probably do a little bit of this anyway, naturally, part and parcel of planning for your business. But there are distinct differences between, even though both are used interchangeably. Now, contingency planning is really your organization's plan B, or your worst case scenario. So it's maybe your business continuity plan or your disaster recovery plan. It's a set of organized, coordinated steps to be taken. It's usually written down. You usually know where to go. I certainly know when I was in the telecoms industry that once hurricane season came round, we sat down, we had our plan, we had our contingency plan for what happens if a hurricane hit the island. What do we need to do? And that is really done to minimize or avoid damage, loss, injury, and make sure that key operations continue. And it's usually that we're planning for a rare event. It's an occasion, it's a threatening event, but it's unlikely, we think unlikely it's going to happen, but it's our rainy day umbrella for us, just in case. And as I said, sometimes those terms are interchangeable. Contingency and scenario planning are interchangeable. But contingency planning, what you need to remember, is a specific type of scenario planning. It's planning for a sudden drastic turn of events. So that's why it's kind of wholly owned on its own, and you really know pretty much can work on it from that perspective. When it comes to scenario planning, however, I found this great quote, which I think really describes it really well. Scenarios are stories about how the future might unfold for our organizations, our communities, and our world. Scenarios are not predictions, rather they are provocative, plausible, and data-rich accounts of how relevant external forces, such as the future political environment, scientific and technological developments, social dynamics, and economic conditions might interact and evolve, providing our organization with different challenges and opportunities. In a nutshell, the purpose of scenario planning is to stretch our thinking about emerging changes and the opportunities and threats that the future might hold. And that's why I love scenario planning. It's almost like creating your own world and your own wish list. And there's me jumping ahead again. So scenario planning usually anticipates gradual change, such as loss of revenue over time. Now, and that's where I think the pandemic really falls into scenario planning, because it is a loss of revenue, and it's probably a much quicker amount of time than we expected, but it still is a situation that lends itself to scenario planning. And scenarios really deal with two worlds. They deal with fact and perception, and they serve two core roles. One is protective, so we can anticipate and understand risk. And the second is entrepreneurial, because it enables us to discover strategic options that we weren't previously aware of. It forces us to think differently, as opposed to contingency, which deals with a known entity. That's what we think is going to happen. This, when it comes to scenario planning, we have to deal with the wild and woolly, the weird and wonderful, and nothing is out of bounds when it comes to scenario planning. And with that, instead of predicting one future when it comes to scenario planning, you start imagining several different ones. And that's the beauty of it. You identify the drivers of change. You imagine the possible directions that these might lead to and the potential outcomes. You examine your current plans in line with these possible futures, or you create a whole new plan based on what you think is going to happen, given all the circumstances. And it's a really powerful tool, scenario planning, because it's very effective in helping us to heighten our focus on future uncertainties and what they might mean. It helps us rehearse the possible responses we could have to these possible futures. And as I said, uncover those options we may not have considered, and also spot them early on as they begin to unfold. As I said, one of the things that from Antigua's perspective, we are highly tourism based. And one of the things I saw happening is that people were very reliant on airports opening at a particular time. But people, when that date moved, they hadn't thought of what will happen if that date's moved. If I want people to come to my event or to my excursion or my hotel, what do I need to do? And that's all part of scenario planning. You know, somebody doesn't want to come to my hotel because of, or this may happen if this happens. And with all those scenarios, you start playing it through and thinking, what would you have to do to negate those possibilities as you go forward? So how do you start the process? Well, there's a very simple probably six quick questions you can ask yourself to really start the process. The first thing is what's the one question that keeps you up at night? That's the crux of the matter. What is it that's keeping you up? You know, what is that stopping you from sleeping? Then you ask yourself, what don't you know about that situation? You know, what is it you're not clear about? What is it you don't know? You know, you don't know if people are going to jump on a plane from straight away. You don't know if airfares are going to go up. Presently able to see the video. Should be able to see it, Sean. It is there. It's on screen. I'm not sure, but there will be a replay, and I'll definitely make sure you get it. My apologies. Sorry. The third thing is, what information do you know? Now, there's certain things you will know. You'll know how the government is, maybe the government regulations are coming in. You'll know what capacity you have in your business. You'll know what services you probably still could provide. But there's information, as much as you don't realize it straight away, there is information that you do know. The fourth thing is to what trends are you seeing? And you'll have to think about this, but the trends are there. You may see, I definitely see here for Antigua, for instance, is that the government here is more reliant. The trend there is they're asking providers or organizations to come up with their own plans as to how they see themselves preventing the spread of corona. They're not prescribing. They're not prescribing the what organizations need to do, which could be a good or a bad thing, because on a good side, it means you get to dictate, or your organization or your industry gets to dictate what needs delivered in your industry. So it's not something that's being asked of you out, you know, that's really pie in the sky that you think you can't deliver. You get to dictate that. On the flip side, if the government's dictating it, then you may not be able to deliver what they want. So as I said, you can see where the trends are emerging. You can see what's happening. You can see where customers are moving. You can see definitely here, if I think from a personal level, people are really liking the drive-by pickups. I, for one, have stopped going to supermarkets. I like delivery. I feel like I'm back in the UK again. I like being able to order in bulk and pick it up and not have the hassle. So there are some trends changing in how people have adapted to the situation, because they say it takes 21 days to create a habit. We've probably been in over 50, almost 60. So definite preferences have been developed. Then number 5, write down what the world will look like if the worst or best case scenarios that you're looking at actually happens. So what does it look like? So, and write it down, because that's when you start fabricating these stories. And it is like storytelling. It is like, you know, well, this would happen and that will happen, and you start extrapolating what could happen. And then lastly, in that process, you test your choices, your strategic choices. How will your business perform in the context of the scenarios you've written? So whatever scenario you've written, you think, okay, if that's what's going to happen, that everybody's going to start shopping from home and no one's going to go to the supermarket, what do I need to do as a business if I'm in the supermarket business? What am I going to do from a vendor that sits outside maybe the supermarket selling my wares, which we have quite often, but no one's coming to the supermarket now. What do I need to do? So that's how you'd start the process, really, with those six questions. So that's really, I want to keep it very brief, but you have the opportunity to work with me in my Plan, Pivot, Profit program. You would have seen that. And I'm working with organizations over a 3-month period now, where I'm helping them to pull their plans together, explore all their options on the potential scenarios, creating a plan, supporting them through it, navigate the new business landscape. Lots of things are going to be changing, how you communicate, what are the new business opportunities, create the necessary buying from the people you're working with in order to move your business forward. So if you want to talk to me a bit further about that, feel free. My details are on there. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can email me at info@janicesutherland.com. You can go to my website, janicesutherland.com, keep it simple. And in LinkedIn, I am Janice Sutherland again. Very simple, very, very simple. But the real thing to remember here is that there's three responses we need to have when it comes to an inherent unpredictable future. All my slides aren't showing up on here, but the first thing is strategic flexibility is a must. You have to be flexible in this. And this is why I love scenario planning, because you can keep reinventing all these different scenarios, creating the scenarios as you see the world changes and things changes. As a business, you have to develop the ability to quickly reconfigure products, channels, skills. You have to be adaptable. You can't sit there thinking, oh, it's going to change back to what things were. Oh, it's going to be the same as it was before. Oh, I'm going to see and wait and see what happens. You have to be willing and able to flex your business muscle to move forward. And then lastly, you have to have the vision. You have to be open to adopt a new business model if needed. And that is what I think people are reticent to do, because they think if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, it is broken, because like it or not, things are going to change. People's expectations have changed, stakeholders, employees. There are so many parts of your business that will have changed without you even wanting it to, that you're going to have no choice but to adopt some new business models. So that's me. I want to keep it very brief. I didn't want to talk forever. Want to keep it short and snappy. 20 minutes, 25 minutes for the first one. Any question? Have I got any questions? I don't see any questions. Let me see the comments. I'm watching. Everything is all new, and we are yet to see if when people start spending again or services. People are locked down emergency mode. And I appreciate that, Trevor. People are in lockdown mode, but I actually think this is again where scenario planning comes into its own, because while they're in lockdown, you as a business or as an organization, as a leader, have the opportunity to sit down and say, what next? You can even poll some of your customers. If you have people you speak to on a regular basis, you can ask them, how have things changed them? What do they do differently? What do they expect to see going forward? How comfortable are they coming back to the way things were? There's things you can actually do to help with your scenario planning, so you can actually have the plan that you need to go forward. So there's still lots that could be done. Any other questions? Let's look for the comments. Scenario planning is great, but how to convince your potential customers of what you think is going to happen? Very good question. I think it's not so much a sales process, but I think you almost have to go through that scenario planning process with them. There's a series of questions. In coaching, it's all about getting the customer or the coachee to see the challenge themselves. So in that situation, what I would be doing is actually developing a series of questions to ask my customer, so they can start thinking about, well, what if this happens, and what would you do if, and how would you cope if that? And by asking them a series of questions, they start having their eyes opened as to, yeah, well, what would happen if that happened, and how would I cope? So, so it's not, so scenario planning isn't just for you. per se. It's obviously for your business, but it is something you can use with your organ. It is something you can use with your customers to get them to think. Doctor coaching stands from that perspective. And a question: how do you convince investors, key stakeholders, we need to pivot? Again, it's a very much, Kevin, it's a very much a similar question, a similar answer I just had. If you're talking, I think hang on, I've just moved my screen there. So for me, that really is, again, another scenario planning. It is about taking them on that journey with you. You can probably see what's going to happen with your scenario planning because you're in the driving seat. You've already done that work. So it's down to you to, for me, where I would be going is actually taking them almost through the situation. These are the facts. This is what we're seeing quite currently. These are potentially what I can see happening based on the trends I'm seeing. Remember those questions I talked about? Based on the trends I'm seeing, these are the potential outcomes or potential situations I could find us in. These are the potential strategies I think we should start considering and do it to them per se before it happens to us. And that's where I'd be going with that. Again, scenario planning isn't just for your business. Scenario planning can be about taking your stakeholders, your customers, your vendors on the same journey as you, so they get to the same point. Again, it is all about questioning. And that's the kind of work I'm doing with my own customers, to take them through with their businesses to look at, how do I build scenario planning? And scenario planning you can also do with your team. It doesn't just stop with you and your organization. Take your team on that journey as well. It's much easier to get your team to buy into the process than it is trying to convince them to come on the journey with you. And that's that really is the beauty of that. Hope that answers your question. Kevin. Yeah. Are there any more questions? I don't want to keep you, as I said, too long. I have 3 more of these over the next coming weeks, as I said, which is the beauty. And I'll be touching on a different subject each week, but all around planning. If you want to know more about the Plan, Pivot, Profit program, that's right. There's a click at the bottom of the screen, which will tell you to learn more about it. That will give you some more information. But again, as I said, always feel free to contact me as well. I'm going to ask you to complete a very brief survey as well at the end of this. I want to make sure I'm hitting the right notes with these webinars. I'm keeping them very short, very sweet, as I said, and just trying to get to the point and making sure I'm covering off the topics people want to hear about. But look up scenario planning. It's very, very interesting. I'm fascinated with it, and I think it's definitely something organizations need to adopt going forward. So if there are no more questions, I'll hang on a couple more minutes, a couple more seconds. Okay, I've sent you a quick email asking you to complete my survey. Thank you very much. In fact, what I will do is actually put the survey link in the comments as well, if I can ask you to do that. Says she was all organized. She really was. Just bear me a second. So yeah, very brief survey. Thank you very much. Now, there will be a replay of this if anybody wasn't able to get hold of everything as well. So there will be a replay, and I've put the link, as I said, to the survey in the notes. Thank you. Loved how short it was. Yeah, but purposely, trust me, I have sat on too many rather long webinars, and I like people to get off and get some action straight away. So without further ado, I'm at 34 minutes. I'm at 34 minutes and I'm going to log off now. Hope to see you next Thursday. Another topic. As I said, I'll be covering another topic. Let me just check what I said the topic would be next week. Let me just, says she, you know how organized I am. I just love how organized I am. Yeah, next week we'll be preparing your business for a post-pandemic world. So we'll go a little bit more into different types of plan, the benefits of planning and stuff like that. But again, if you put stuff in the survey that you'd like to see, I will adapt it accordingly. I've changed this on the fly pretty much myself yesterday because of some feedback I'd had and what I'd seen. So by all means, I'm pretty adaptable. So send through the information on the survey, and I hope to see you next week. Take care and have a great weekend, guys. Speak soon. Take care.